Welcome to another episode of Football Tailgaters, where we talk everything about the NFL. In today's episode, as usual, I have here with me Yams, the Jets fan, Andy, the unbiased football fan, and myself, Aaron, the Cowboys fan. And here, we're talking about fantasy, your picks for bets, all kinds of football stuff, including, the preseason just started. How does that feel for you guys? How are you guys doing? Watching your team, I guess, Andy, you're unbiased, so you don't really get a say in this. This is more towards Yams. How did you feel about the Jets? Because I kind of know how I felt about the Cowboys.
I'm not happy.
I guess that makes two of us. In today's episode, we're going to talk about some reports that have been going around. We're going to talk a little bit about our teams, a little bit about the Jets and about the Cowboys. Zach Wilson got hurt in a non-contact play. We're going to talk about that. And the Cowboys, as usual, doing their amazing thing of being able to produce not what you think they're doing at, which is like, running game, passing game, anything that has to do with actually being productive. They're producing penalty flags. They're having issues with penalties. That's a big issue. And, I'm very frustrated, but we'll get into that later. Also, there's been, a report that the Cleveland Browns are interested in Jimmi Garoppolo if Watson is suspended for the whole season. So very big if here. We'll talk about how Jimmy will do for the Browns if he does get traded there. And we also talk about top 5 fantasy tips for any fantasy lovers out there. And we'll talk about our fantasy busts here. So I guess we'll start with the reports. Or you know what? Let's do the games here. Let's get those right out of the way because the preseason started. This is what at least some people have been waiting for. Some people don't care about it. Others are kind of like, I don't know, I just want to see the rookies play. Others, are not interested because, like I said, there's nothing going on much. All the starters are usually sitting and so on. But Yams, what do you have to say about Zach Wilson getting hurt in a non-contact play? He was scrambling outside the pocket, and he was trying to do like a juke, right? And he just kind of planted his foot, and it just didn't go well for that leg. I don't think it's a big deal because, we're kind of asking here, are they in trouble? Not really. They came back with the results of the MRI. It's about a 2-3 week recovery. I think it'll be fine. 2 to 4?
Yeah, 2 to 4.
Oh, it's not 2 to 3. Okay, so
actually we are waiting for his surgery to be completed, which we haven't even gotten any report that his surgery has been completed to see if there's actually additional damage.
Oh, because they just said it was just a bruise.
A bruised bone and a torn meniscus, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. So I believe they do an arthroscope surgery. I think that's what it's called. And they go under the kneecap to clean it up. And the surgeon, which I heard that it was a good surgeon, but I'm not too sure, that he's really good and he'll actually let everybody know. Well, not him personally, but it will be reported if there is actually additional weeks that he's going to be out.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, you can go ahead and take it, Yams. It's your team, your quarterback.
Oh man. Well, I had the game recorded because
kind of accidentally
in Texas.
Spoiled it.
No, I had no idea. So I had the game recorded. I live in Texas, so it was a blackout game. So I had it recorded for the next morning. I was going to watch it. Well, I got a weird text from you. Then I got another weird text from another person. So for me, I didn't think about it. I just thought that was a weird question to ask me. How calm am I? So I said I'm a pretty calm person. That's a weird question to ask. And then another text saying, man, the Jets are cursed. And I'm like, I guess they just suck again. So I just, I'm not going to worry about it. This is I'll leave this as a one last peaceful moment without me being angry at the Jets. So I moved on with my day. The Jets are in trouble. Look, the injury, it's not much of a concern for me. What's concerning is the game that I saw. I didn't see any improvement. All we heard was all this hype that Zach Wilson has improved. He's matured. Let's be honest here. I'm more concerned in the fact that he threw an interception to a linebacker that was right in front of him.
Yeah, for sure. That another guy that didn't see a ghost come out of nowhere and just intercepted him.
Yeah. I mean, come on. This is your second year and you do that? And that's the reason why he got injured, because he was trying to do all these fancy moves to make up for his interception, and boom, he goes down.
Yeah.
And also could have been a karma for what Quincy Williams did to Jalen Hurts.
No, hitting him like when Jalen
Hurts
was coming.
Out. Yeah, he was already out of bounds.
That was messed up too.
What are we doing here? Why am I seeing the same things over and over? Oh, and let me add, and when the game started, we just let Jalen Hurts just walk on through. Just come on in. Just go ahead and score. They're looking like the same New York Jets 2021 defense, and it's disappointing. And then what bugs me the most is rumors that were going on in the off season. And both of you guys know what rumors I'm talking about.
There's a lot of rumors, so tell me.
This Zach Wilson maturity.
His maturity?
Maturity, and to matured woman that he...
Oh, okay.
Well, this type of rumors come and bite you in the butt when you suck. I'm just mad. I'm just...
No, what's frustrating is the fragile quarterbacks that the Jets have been getting. Like last quarterback was Sam Darnold. That guy didn't even finish a whole season. He was always unhealthy for some reason. Either it was an injury or some type of disease, like when he got mono. And last year, we had Zach Wilson be injured for like 3 weeks with his knee. And now in preseason number 1, he gets injured. So if I was the GM, I would start just getting prepared just in case if the season goes down, then maybe I should just move on quickly, like hire quickly and fire quickly, and get another quarterback in the next year's draft. Like I've been saying, there's 3 good quarterbacks coming up. And also, if they have almost the same record, also think about Salah. Maybe he's the guy that you're going to have to replace as well.
I think, obviously, what we saw here is based off of one game of his second season. It wasn't the best, obviously. Like, I'm watching the highlights right now because I needed like a refresher. Because I do remember his performance, Zach Wilson's, wasn't the best. And I think that the coaching staff should have been a lot more conservative and more controlling of what he does on the field. I feel like the coaching staff was part of the issue here of what we might see in the future for this team, and they kind of need to do better for that team and take advantage of these young rookies. And I think, it's kind of unfortunate that the Jets haven't been drafting the best quarterbacks. I don't think Zach Wilson is a terrible quarterback, but
we don't know if he is.
We don't know if he is. We need to see him play a full season, not injured.
And not even in the full season. You saw him last year. He only played good in the last 5 games of the end of the season after he injured his knee.
Yes.
And not amazing, though.
And not amazing.
No. I think he needs a fair shot of a full season. If he cannot accomplish a full season, then we might have to start looking again at the draft, a quarterback-filled draft in this coming one. So obviously, Jalen Hurts was a better quarterback out of the 2 here. It was a dirty play with that hit. So unnecessary for a preseason. Why? Like, you're supposed to discipline your players properly. What's going on here? I think the coaching staff should have some questions here too.
Absolutely.
There needs to be discipline going on. It's a preseason. You need to control your quarterback more, restrict them in the preseason. He's your franchise quarterback. You're making him go out there and look flashy for a preseason game? He's not supposed to prove himself in a preseason game. He's supposed to prove himself in the regular season where it matters.
I wouldn't give too much credit to Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, honestly. It's the Jets. The Jets really were horrible. So I wouldn't say, oh, look how good the Eagles. The Jets made them look good. I still have my speculation if they are good. But the bottom line is, it's great that Zach Wilson, they lucked out with the injury he got, but he didn't play well. The defense didn't play well. I just don't like what I see. And I'm even questioning purchasing the Sunday ticket to watch them because I do not want to go through another season of being angry in front of my TV.
Well, speaking of like the head coaches not having it ready, what did you think about your Cowboys, Aaron?
Awful. Just same thing we saw for the most part this past season. They had the most offensive penalties, and they were just the penalties are the big problem. There's no discipline going on here. It's a big problem. I will say Tyler Smith was, from what I saw, I thought he was pretty good. I don't think he disappointed. I think from what he was able to show, it was pretty good. So I guess I'm kind of excited about that. We have a better than what might be a better than average offensive lineman here. Even though he does have big issues, in the past being a flag machine. But this one preseason game, he looked well. It was pretty good. Besides that, everything else was bad.
I mean, the only positive that I can tell you about it is that it was mostly non-starters. It was just a very, very little starters for the defense and offense.
But this is not to say that these are you're not going to see them in the regular season game. Some of these guys are going to see them in the regular season game. So you should definitely worry about certain things of it. And also the coaching. They're coaching players here. The coaching staff doesn't mean just because they're second, third stringers, they should be out there committing all kinds of penalties. You're not supposed to do that. It should be disciplined, and it's going back to the same issue of Mike McCarthy. They're not fixing their issues internally, and it's going to be a problem this season. Well, and we might see them repeat what they did last season with the fluke, where they're just getting wins, because it's just their schedule isn't hard, and they're going to go into a wild card spot possibly, maybe, and they're going to choke. So
Mike McCarthy, he is a problem, but it's also the Joneses that's the problem. We've been saying this in other episodes.
Yes.
The reasons why there's so many penalties is because these players are not scared. They're not afraid of their coach. I mean, usually when you commit penalties, the next time that you go in practice, you're going to be running laps. You're going to just have a really tough time, a harder time than everybody else in practice. And it seems like with the Cowboys, they're just not afraid. They're just like, how can we fix these up? How can we clean it up? If this first round lineman, Tyler Smith, had the most holding penalties in college of the whole country, if I'm not mistaken, and you draft them, and in the very first preseason game, he gets 3, I think, then that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
You should be working with him. Once you signed him, work with him every single day to make sure he doesn't get his arms not outside into the shoulders. And don't push the defensive lineman to the ground. You're gonna get flagged right away. The officials are right there. And if they know that you are prone to holding, it's gonna be an easy call for them.
It was funny because it was the opening series, the first series that they did for the Cowboys, and immediately he was out there getting flagged, which is so funny. But he did show his flashes of being a good, competent lineman, but. It still shows. I mean, you're the most flagged player in the whole country, right? When it comes to being that offensive lineman, and you go into a team where there's no discipline. Obviously, the issue is still gonna, be persistent. It's gonna be there. So they need to figure that out. And obviously, yes, it goes back all the way to the Joneses, but
I don't believe it does. I don't believe this goes back to the Joneses to discipline a team for penalties.
No.
Let me explain to you, Jens.
They should be afraid.
No, let me explain to you how it works in the Cowboys. Because I've seen the situation with the Cowboys before. The thing is that Jerry Jones, or now Stephen Jones, they're so involved with the team, more so than any other general manager, that they're in the locker rooms every time that there's a meeting, after but anyways, they all know in the culture that the Joneses have an open door policy, that the player can overmind the head coach and go into the Joneses office and speak freely about what they think about the team, about the coaches. So it's there's no authority with the head coach. And that's why these head coaches like Bill Parcells that are competent enough, and they're not gonna take this type of guess taking off their authority from them, and that's why they leave. That's why Jimmy Johnson got kicked out, because of all ego-ness. So they only get coaches that are pushovers, and they'll just listen to the head coaches. I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was telling him, maybe some head coaches, when they're offered the position to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, they actually might even see it as a cash cow. I'm just here to collect the check, and whatever the Joneses say, like, fine. And I'm gonna collect the big check because it's the Cowboys, and that's it.
So what is it? Is it like a cold parenting? Mm-hmm. Mom and dad, Jones being mom and the coach being dad. So if one coach goes to or says something to a player, then dad would just override it. You just said that after a game like that, there are 17 penalties in a game. Mm-hmm. They should go the next day or the day after and do push-ups, laps. Are you telling me that?
Did you say slaps?
Laps.
Oh, laps.
Okay. Laps.
Okay, laps.
Or slaps. You're telling me that McCarthy doesn't have that authority?
According to ex-Cowboy players, I believe Barry Church was the one that said it. Nope. There's that type of culture is not there. They're just not afraid of it. And I could be wrong. It might not have been Barry Church, but there was a report of other ex-players that say that that they're not afraid of the head coach.
And there's been that repeating cycle ever since who got fired, Jimmy Johnson.
Yep.
We saw it all the way back when. And then it's just been on and on and on and on and on. It's crazy that people still haven't really pinpointed this issue.
It is crazy.
Right? It's been going on for decades, honestly. Decades. It's been decades. Really disappointing. But it's the first preseason game for them. And it was, like you said, the second, it was all bench, almost no starters. Tyler Smith still persistent with, the flags and stuff like that. He's still showing what he had issues with in college, but he had those flashes of being able to be a good lineman. And honestly, some of the times I was looking at the O-line as it was, they were making some pretty good lanes for these backup running backs. So I hope to see an improvement in that, since that's where they're going to depend on, according to, again, the owner, who's always hands-on, Jerry Jones, that they want to run it more, use Zeke more. So now we'll move on from that and go to Jimmy Garoppolo being in the news once again, as an interest for the Cleveland Browns. They believe they can possibly pursue Jimmy Garoppolo if Watson gets suspended for the whole season. So if that is the case, how do you think Jimmy Garoppolo will do for the Cleveland Browns if he gets picked up, as a trade?
Honestly, I think Jimmy Garoppolo is the best, I guess, the best option for any team that needs a quarterback ASAP. He has been in a winning culture type of team. And it was funny when we actually saw that Zach Wilson actually went down. Right away, they're talking about Jimmy Garoppolo going to the Jets. He did play with Robert Saleh back with the 49ers and the passing coach, which is now the offensive coordinator for the Jets. So that would have been a good landing spot. But if he goes to the Browns, it's the best option for any quarterback for any team, that needs a quarterback. And he actually has 1 year left in his contract. So after he does that 1 year, he can go for wherever he wants, unless he wants to stay there, which I mean, of course, he's not gonna accept to be a backup. He's gonna be wanting to go somewhere else. So,
for real, this sucks. This team needs to learn to cut their losses and learn from their lessons. Do not sign a quarterback who is in the middle of a legal battle with 20 plus women. You just don't do that. You should learn your lesson, stick with the quarterback you have now. Jimmy Garoppolo is a decent quarterback, and he will be an upgrade to, who is it? Jacoby
Jacoby Brissett.
Brissett. he is an average quarterback or above average in this case with the quarterbacks that are in there. If the Browns want some shot of having some kind of a season, then yeah, go ahead and get Jimmy Garoppolo to help him have a decent, but it won't be such a help because Jimmy is a good quarterback, but he needs an outstanding head coach, and there's not an outstanding head coach in the Browns. Since it's been so messy with the Browns, if they get Jimmy, I just don't see it. What if he starts playing well?
You still have to continue with Deshaun Watson regardless, even if he plays well. But it just shows how dysfunction, like you're saying, that the Browns organization are. So they just dug themselves into this deep hole, and they're just hoping for they're just hoping for next year.
So if the Browns go to the Super Bowl with Jimmy, you just continue, oh, okay, thanks, Jimmy. We'll continue with Deshaun Watson?
It's very unfortunate, but that's the hole that the Browns dug themselves into.
I say just stay away, and, you take the L. You take the L. You sign a quarterback you deep down know you shouldn't have, and just take the L and just go with the backup quarterback you have right now.
I don't think that's that simple to say because you do have some star players that are just going through their careers and you're just wasting them. So the whole point is to actually go into the Super Bowl. So you have Garrett, the defensive lineman. You have Ward. You have star players that like Chubb, that are their contracts are coming up, and then you're gonna have to start all over again, trading some of these players or letting go of these players and figuring things out. So it's not that easy to just cut your losses. But it's very unfortunate. I wouldn't have gone for Deshaun Watson because he's suspended. I would have rolled the dice and gotten a rookie quarterback and see how that would go and get a veteran quarterback as well and go for it that way. But it's their fault for digging themselves in this hole with Deshaun Watson. And they weren't the only teams. I mean, there was the Panthers and it was the Falcons. I believe the Saints were in the discussion too for Watson, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not like the Browns were the only incompetent ones. We had other teams that were trading for this quarterback too.
We don't know the deals that they were presenting for Deshaun Watson.
Regardless, you're getting a quarterback that was probably going to get suspended for the whole year.
Mm-hmm. And there was, I guarantee you, every team that was interested in him, that was trying to pursue it legitimately, was at least containing 2 first-round picks.
Stupid move. Any team who were trying to do that. It's just plain stupid.
I'm sure the general managers for all those other teams that were trying to get him are in sigh of relief, you know what?
They're desperate.
Good thing. It's a good thing that we didn't get this quarterback.
And the ones that we're chasing, there were teams that are desperate to hang on to their job.
Yeah, it seems like like you're saying, a desperate move.
Mm-hmm. The Browns.
Just frustrated and just wants to just get something going now instead of being an organized professional team. And you can say good professional teams are kind of like the Patriots. They got Mac Jones, a rookie quarterback, and they waited. They didn't trade it up for him. It fell to him. Look at the Pittsburgh Steelers with Kenny Pickett. We don't know how he's going to be doing, but those are good, respectable organizations that do it well. So we'll just see.
Yeah, it's a pretty complicated situation for the Browns, but at least we have a direction that they're going with, and we'll see what happens if he does go through. Because the NFL is yet to appeal, right?
They did appeal. I think they're.
They appealed already, right?
Yeah, they appealed it, and they're just waiting for.
Right.
I guess the ruling.
Yes. Yeah. You're right. They're waiting for the ruling. Yeah. So it's an interesting idea having Jimmy Garoppolo there. I think he would be a good fit, but I don't know about his attitude a little bit. What did come out of those rumors? I don't know I think we mentioned that. Yeah, we did in a podcast where it just seems like he has a little bit of a diva attitude, but that's digging way more into the what ifs. Now, what about talking about, I'm going to shift it over to Andy here and do the top 5 fantasy tips for, any fantasy lovers out there. We'll go around the horn, do a 1 by 1, you'll list one and then we'll talk about it, I guess, right? Is this how you want to do it? All right, cool.
Yeah.
And we'll do 5 of them and you can start with number 1.
Perfect. So with we'll start with the number one, like you're saying. And the number one is don't draft a quarterback in the first 2 rounds. So a lot of people that are new to fantasy football, they start getting the flashy players, which is Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen right off the bat. And in order to win these fantasy leagues, you have to go with a running back, preferably. But if you need to, get a wide receiver, a star wide receiver in the first or in second round. And probably you're going to start thinking about getting a quarterback after like the 5th round or on the 5th round. And if you really want those star quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, then okay, fine, get them in the 3rd round. But besides that, just get a running back or a wide receiver in the first 2 rounds.
Mm-hmm. I think I agree. There was, I think 2 years ago, in the last 3 years, there's been an exception of where, Josh Allen would be taken in the 2nd round, late 2nd round, or Patrick Mahomes back when he had all those kinds of weapons. But now it's really a really, really bad move to do that, I think, because you don't have anyone that I think could guarantee you that besides maybe Josh Allen. It's more of a risk. There's just a lot more talent elsewhere, running backs, tons of wide receivers. It's just when it really makes sense to do that. But yet, here we are. People still do it, and I guess some people may thank those people. But I mean, I do agree with that. I do agree with not drafting a quarterback in the first 2 rounds. It's pretty risky.
I love people who draft quarterbacks in the first 2 rounds.
Well, yeah, for the other people that actually have been doing
advantage.
Fantasy, yeah, of course, it's to your advantage. But yeah, don't get a quarterback. If you're listening to this, don't get a quarterback in the first 2 rounds. Going on number 2, the second tip for fantasy listeners is don't waste draft picks on kickers and defenses. Get them all at the end of the draft. So in the last 2 rounds, get your kicker and your defense. And the reason why you do this is because for defenses, usually they don't give you that many points. Also kickers. So just switch them around from week to week. This is why you play fantasy, to be involved and to look what is the best defense on that week and kicker, and just switch them around. And just get sleepers on the other rounds before the last 2 rounds. Players that you think might replace a player if they go down. Those are the winners, and those are how a lot of people win their fantasy.
Yep, I agree with that one too.
Good one.
Especially if it's a league with a lot of if it's like like a 12-player team or like fantasy, it's definitely a good thing to do. It's just wait until the very end. A lot of the players are going to get picked up, but there's still a possibility. I don't think there's an excuse to get anyone like that high. Justin Tucker or the Patriots in like a couple of years ago. But yeah.
I mean, if you get lucky if a player gets a lucky defense or a good kicker and they don't want to drop him, like, yeah, so be it. But you have more an advantage if you just get a decent sleeper or a decent backup to another running back or a number 2 running back or number 3. So yeah, but we'll move on to the 3rd one. So the 3rd tip is don't get cute and draft a wide receiver on the top 5 picks of the draft. What? Mostly all the I know this is what people might have a debate with, but I believe you should always get a running back in the top 5 picks.
As long as Cooper Kupp is still being Cooper Kupp, I think there's that only exception.
I think it depends, really. Like, if you have a Cooper Kupp's
the only one that I would do it, personally.
Yeah, at 5, I would get him.
Like, I would risk it. It's not a guarantee that I would 100% do it, but it's on the table.
I guarantee you guys, Cooper Kupp is not going to make the same numbers as he did last year. The team got Allen Robinson. He's not going to get the same amount of points. And if you get a running back, one of these top running backs.
Say your reason why.
So these running backs, these top 5 running backs, they're going to get their touches no matter what. They're going to be getting their touches no matter what. They don't have another player like running back that they're competing against because they're star running backs. With wide receivers like Cooper Kupp, which is a great example, they just got Allen Robinson. They're going to be moving the ball around, and they're going to give Allen Robinson some touches because he's a really good player. So that's just my opinion. I mean, you can select a wide receiver. I have no problem with somebody selecting Cooper Kupp or Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase in the top 5. If that's what you really believe, then power to you. I just believe that you would have a better chance to win in the league if you get a running back in the top 5 picks.
Well, that's not always the case because it's been done. People do it where they don't do that, and they let's say they go by your rule book. It doesn't guarantee them going to the playoffs every single time.
Of course not.
I mean, prime example is us, you and I. I'm just saying it's not the stupidest move. I think it's dumber to do a quarterback in the first 2 rounds than grabbing Cooper Kupp in the top 5. I think Cooper Kupp is totally capable of doing it. Odell Beckham was in the past season, and the Rams have always had a good third wide receiver as long as Cooper Kupp has been there. They've always had a good trio, so it's never been an issue where Cooper Kupp's numbers diminish because the percentages that he's been receiving, where the throws are going his way, isn't something to be scared about, even with the addition of Allen Robinson, because, they've had Odell Beckham, they've had, who was it, Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks, all those good wide receivers where they deserve a good share of targets because they're not terrible wide receivers. And yet it still all goes to Cooper Kupp. So it's nothing to worry about with him. I think he's the only exception, but that's pretty much it. I think Justin Jefferson is where, all right, I wouldn't go top 5 for that guy. But Cooper Kupp, I would consider it.
Well, everybody, I knew that was going to be a debate.
I kind of, it's a maybe. It depends on the situation. Depends on what's available.
These are just Andy's. These are just Andy's top.
Rules.
These are just Andy's fantasy top 5 tips. Okay, moving on to the number 4 tip is do your due diligence and research before the draft. Have your notes ready. Make sure you listen to podcasts, look at YouTube videos, get magazines. Our podcast. Listen to get magazines. See shows, like do your due diligence and research also online. Look at the stats. How did players do last year, and if there has been any changes to that team. Like another example I was saying with Cooper Kupp, and they got Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson's going to get a lot more throws to than he probably did in Chicago last year. So just do your due diligence, have your notes ready, make sure you're prepared so you're not scrambling around to see which player is best, because there is a time limit for you to pick a pick in every single round.
I agree with that one. That one's pretty simple.
Pretty obvious.
Well, you would think it's pretty obvious, but I've seen people that just go and they're just like, all right, whatever's on top of the list, I'm going to get that one. I mean,
those people don't care.
Yeah, well...
It's
they think, or it's an ego thing, and they think that they know a lot about it, and they just like, I can do everything.
Oh, then you're never gonna change their mind.
Yeah,
they'll be stuck there. So the only ones this, I guess, it would really go to is the people who don't know that much about it but are interested. They deserve that knowledge. They deserve to, and also to mention, there's some people might say that there's a ton of paywall content. Now I think you can find pretty much a lot of the free content that you can get off of the internet to be able to, do your homework.
To make a good
you guys do it.
Yeah, for sure.
We're doing it.
Yeah, for sure. Even if you played fantasy for a long time, you still do your research. I mean, this is gambling. You're not just gonna, just because you think whatever's gonna play out in your head. I mean, you do a little bit of research and you'll have a better chance to win. So.
And the important thing is to continue researching. It's not just a few weeks or the day before the draft. It's to continue.
Exactly.
It's like a week by week basis.
It's a week-by-week basis completely. All right, moving on to the last tip of the fantasy top 5 tips. The number 5 tip is throughout the season, do your research and look who to pick up on waivers, kind of like Yams was just saying right now.
I didn't see that, sorry.
So throughout each week, you have to check to see who's on bye. Did any of your players got injured so you can replace them? Who's actually has a better, who's in a better position to play a lesser defense? Who has more injuries in their defense that wide receiver is playing against, or that running game? So make sure you do your due diligence and pick up waivers. See if anybody wants to trade. Usually that's kind of harder to do, but you can always pick up on waivers, and make sure you do it smartly and not always try to, I guess, because do it smartly, because there's situations that other players in the fantasy are going to go and laser in on one certain player, and whoever's on the top of that waiver is probably going to get it. So you know that you're not going to be getting that particular waiver. So make sure you have a plan B and get somebody else that you think will land to you.
Now the thing to be careful here with is don't be constantly be like picking up players in the waivers, because you're always going to be last. So you have to be very careful with that too. Like, is this guy really worth it for me to go last place on the waivers list?
For sure. And that's what I mean about just make sure that you're actually trying to pick up somebody that you really, really need. And after the waiver wire has happened, then you're free to pick up whoever you want without affecting your position on the next week's waiver wire.
Exactly. And yeah, because if you do it week on week on week, you're always going to be last, and you're never going to pick up the players you want unless, people are really clueless about whatever you think is going to happen. So, yeah, those were pretty good, I think. Very helpful. Definitely something to keep an eye on for a lot of people that deserve that knowledge. But what about continue on fantasy here and move on to fantasy busts? Our fantasy bust, who we think isn't going to do great this season but has those high expectations. I think I'll start out first with my fantasy bust here. I'm only naming one because I think it's more clear than others. And I think that's going to be Javonte Williams, the running back from the Denver Broncos. The reason why I say that is because he's drafted pretty high up from what I thought he would have been drafted on. He's being drafted around like the around mid second round, you could say. Obviously, it really depends on how many players you have on your league, but let's assume this is like a 12-player league. I think he's drafted pretty high for a running back committee, and what it seems like is going to be a pass-heavy offense. I think they still have Melvin Gordon on there, and he's just as good, and I think he might be just as much of a workhorse as Javonte Williams. It's just that running back committee that makes me kind of nervous. Same thing with San Francisco. They have a running back committee. I think also as well, the Dolphins, they just have a saturated roster spot for the running backs. So it's something to keep an eye on whenever you're trying to pick a running back. You got to make sure these teams have a clear number one. Now, I'm not meaning like as much as like we only depend on this guy, because sometimes it is a good case to where, I don't know, maybe Najee Harris could be a great pickup because they're going to depend on him. But who knows? Maybe because of the risk you'll take with Kenny Pickett being a good quarterback, they won't be able to depend as much on him. I guess he'll just be another deadly asset that they have. I'm going
to completely disagree with you. No, Javonte Williams, there's been reports with him that he's been the number one guy in Denver, and he's been blowing it up, and it's not a factor to see if Melvin Gordon is going to take reps from him. It's been Javonte Williams, and Russell Wilson does well with their running backs as well. He does rely on them. So I have no problem anybody picking them in the middle of the second round or in the beginning of the second round for sure. No problem at all. So I'm just going to disagree with you there.
No. I don't know where you got that from. There's been no clear alpha. There's no clear running back on here. This is just what I've been seeing, and I'm also nervous on that because they are saturated in the running back spot. So I'm good.
Okay. Well, now I know your strategy with Javonte Williams.
I mean,
I'll know I know if you're picking him, if you're in the top of the second round and I'm like in the middle and I want to go for Javonte Williams, he's going to be available for me.
Well, there's just a lot more better running backs that are probably going to be available that are clear number ones than him. So that's why. But depending on the situation, I'm not saying I won't draft them.
Let me ask you a question.
The strategy is very dependent on the current situation because whenever you're drafting, your strategy changes like 20 times because your players get stolen all around the corners.
Well, for the first 2 rounds, I'm pretty sure you have the ones that are going to be available. You know what's going to be available. You start struggling when it's like maybe on the third or fourth, you start looking that things start changing big time and you really have to focus. But on the first and second, you have like your star wide receivers and running backs ready to go on your list.
Javonte Williams is being drafted in the second round, and he's been taken pretty high up than I thought he would have been. He's being drafted higher up than other running backs that are more clear number ones. So that's just one thing that I'm kind of keeping my eye on. But yeah, I mean, sure.
Well, let me ask you a question, though. Who would you pick, Kamara or Javonte Williams?
Kamara.
Even though he might be suspended in this year?
Yeah, because he's going to be a late round pick, just like Williams.
Okay. Now I know, and I'm going to be quiet now. You were going to say something, Yams. No? Okay.
I was just shocked.
Well, why don't you say your bust, Yams?
Okay, my bust is, and I pretty sure one of you are gonna disagree with me. It's Dak Prescott. I think they're having him pretty high. He doesn't have Amari Cooper. He's gone. We have James Washington, who's on the sideline, I think. Michael Gallup, who's on the sideline too, or out for the season, or will be back in mid-season. We have Prescott, who's coming in with fewer weapons to throw through than it was last year. And last year, he did okay. But this time, it's going to be a very run-heavy team because of the lack of weapons, should I say, that it's not around him. So I feel like his fantasy numbers could be an impact and could fall to what we saw last year. I know there's this game plan that we're going to see Dak run more. We'll see. Again, it's a risk because he did go down in an injury when he did run. So I don't know if the Cowboys really want to take that route with him running. I think he will run when he needs to, but he won't be that type of running quarterback like Lamar Jackson.
No, of course he's not going to be like Lamar Jackson, but I'm going to disagree with you. I don't. Dak Prescott, the Cowboys are still going to be passing the ball, regardless if they have. It's not like he has 0 wide receivers. He is going to have some wide receivers. They're just not big stars anymore. He does have CeeDee Lamb. He still has his tight end Schultz, and he still has the running back that actually catch the ball as well. And then we have Tolbert as well that he's supposedly
we don't know.
But they're going to figure it out to have wide receivers. Remember that year when they actually traded for Amari Cooper. So if they're struggling a lot in the wide receivers,
they'll get
Jerry
Antonio
Jones,
Brown? Maybe. Of course, this sounds like a cowboy, typical cowboy wishful thinking.
It's not a wishful thinking because I really don't think a lot of Cowboys are going to want Antonio Brown in the Cowboys. But I disagree with you. I don't think he's going to be a bust at all. What do you think, Aaron?
My opinion might change when I see a preseason with Dak Prescott. Okay?
He might not even play in the preseason at all.
That's what I'm thinking then.
He doesn't have to prove anything.
You had him in fantasy
He doesn't
last
have
year,
to
right?
prove anything. What?
I had him in fantasy last year.
Yes,
I believe
you did.
so.
How was he?
He was all right.
What points did he bring in?
He came in from like 18 to 22, 23.
Okay, but No. How is he a bust when he's being drafted over Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, Russell Wilson?
Wait, he's being drafted over Josh Allen?
He's not being drafted over Josh Allen. Like, no.
Dak Prescott is going under them, meaning how is he a bust if his expectations are low?
His expectations are low. That's what he's saying. That all of those quarterbacks that he
those quarterbacks are going
before him.
First, yes, before him.
Okay.
So there's no bust there.
How can I say he's coming in as a less improved Dak Prescott than he was last year? I'm saying that the points he brought in last year, 18 to 22, will probably be 16 to 18 because of lack of weapons in the team. And of course, the team is going to be more run heavy.
It'll be fine. He's not going to be a bust. He'll perform well. He's not a terrible quarterback. He'll be better than Kirk Cousins. I can tell you that for sure. He's going to be better than Tua.
Nope.
He's going to be better than...
for sure it's not better than Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is a beast in fantasy.
Not a tremendous beast.
No. I've had him. He's decent.
He's decent, but he's not a tremendous beast. He does have a lot of...
Fine. I shouldn't have used the word beast.
Yeah, beast is Josh Allen.
Josh Allen's a beast.
Herbert, those are beasts.
Oh my gosh.
He's a reliable general. Fine.
Now here, let me help out the case that I was making beforehand on why I think people shouldn't be that afraid to draft anyone like Kamara. Is because he's looking more unlikely that he'll be disciplined this season. So that's just something that's been going on around the news that Adam Schefter has been reporting. So I don't know how you guys didn't see that, which is why I'm telling you is he's going up higher than expected, because now it doesn't seem like he's going to face that discipline and he'll be fine this season. So that's something that you have to keep yourself, keep it in mind. Keep yourself aware just in case. Obviously, if it does go down south, then somebody like Javonte Williams is definitely a better option, obviously. But aside from that, if Alvin Kamara plays a whole season, he'll be perfectly fine. If any other running back that isn't just a rotational running back, that is a clear number one, is going to perform more of it's going to be a safer pick, I think. That's why I was saying it's kind of more like that case than, of what Javonte Williams has been, I guess, being put up against. So same thing with some quarterbacks with Dak Prescott. He'll be fine. He's no bust. I think Javonte Williams a bigger risk when it comes to talking about running backs than drafting Dak Prescott, because Dak Prescott isn't.
We're disagree. We're just something that
mine's
we're just
a bigger risk than yours.
Dak Prescott to be a bigger risk than Javonte Williams? I don't know.
Why? We know his floor already. You just said he has nothing to prove.
I didn't.
And
say
now
that.
Andy said that. Why? And now you're expressing doubts on him being able to perform like he has been in the past seasons, Andy.
Oh, that was a question for you.
Well, okay, I don't want you to confuse. I'm the one not providing any doubts. It's Yams here.
No, I know, but I'm saying that based on the spots that are being picked, Dak Prescott is being picked a lot later.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So he's not a risky pick.
Well, can I say my bust?
No, yeah, go.
Yeah, let me say my bust. So, my bust for this fantasy, which is not a complete bust, but he is getting drafted.
That's kind of what I said. Well, I said it's kind of not a complete bust. I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
It's fine.
It has to be bust. Like, they're going to
suck. You're just away from bust, by the way. Go ahead, Andy.
Well, I guess you guys are going to disagree with me on this one. I just think this particular player is getting drafted way higher than he is Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is getting drafted before Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Dak Prescott. So this...
I kind of agree with it.
The Cincinnati Bengals are actually going to be running the ball more, and he's not a running quarterback.
Oh my God.
And Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers have proved themselves year after year what they're worth.
I love that you guys are my fantasy team.
Including Dak Prescott. So, no, I'm serious. He's getting drafted way before these guys. He shouldn't be at all.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that for that
God.
exact reason. Yeah, I think he's a pretty risky pick for what he's being set up to. That's the thing. He's being drafted way higher than what we think he's supposed to go.
Yeah, if I'm giving you Joe Burrow or Aaron Rodgers, who are you gonna pick for the fantasy?
I understand why he's being picked before Aaron Rodgers.
Why?
Because Aaron Rodgers' main wide receiver, Devontae Adams, thank you, is gone.
That doesn't matter. He didn't have Devontae Adams
before,
his whole career.
you've said, I remember exactly that you've defended him, Yams, and saying that Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers and he's going to do Aaron Rodgers things.
He's going to make another wide receiver a top wide receiver, regardless.
He'll be fine.
He'll be perfectly fine, as Tom Brady.
Yes, I do think he'll be fine, but I do see why Joe Burrow is being drafted. You just mentioned his weapons, and I just mentioned the lack of weapons that Dak Prescott has. He has Jamar Chase, and that chemistry is unstoppable. It's touchdown after touchdown.
Yeah, but in fantasy, running yards count. And Joe Burrow doesn't run. He's a pocket passer.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I disagree with you. I don't normally draft running quarterbacks, and I do okay. Yeah, okay, if you're looking at a running quarterback, then yeah, go ahead and draft your Trey Lance. Go ahead and draft your Lamar Jackson, your Mahomes. Good luck if they're even there. Good luck if they're even there, okay? They're not going to be there. Those are the guys that go ahead and draft. They're running quarterbacks, and probably starting in the third round, they start drafting those guys. Those guys are not available. So Joe Burrow's there. I'm taking him.
He was averaging under 20 fantasy points per game. Last season, That's
okay, guys. That's good.
No, that's not good. You're looking for a quarterback that gets you more than 20 points.
Yep. Which is an issue. And, I mean, honestly, in this case, now that A.J. Brown is with the Eagles, Jalen Hurts looks a lot more enticing than he did last season.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking to pick up more Jalen Hurts than Joe Burrow.
Yes, me too.
And Joe Burrow, I believe that Joe Burrow would win a Super Bowl before Jalen Hurts. But for fantasy purposes, it's Jalen Hurts.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's not about who's the best quarterback. It's about who is the best option for you in fantasy.
Do we know?
Like Kirk Cousins. We know that he's not going to go to the Super Bowl, but you said that he's really good at fantasy. So that's my whole point.
Well, okay. I wouldn't say really good. He is just reliable. Like you said, you need to make points, 20 points and above, and that's what he did. He brought me 20 points and above.
That just shows better than
Lamar
was
Jackson.
Better than Joe Burrow.
Lamar Jackson is going after Joe Burrow, and Lamar Jackson has averaged 20 points last year. 2020, he averaged 22. 2019, he averaged 27. It's just, it doesn't. I'd prefer to take someone like Lamar Jackson over Joe Burrow because he's able to produce over 20 points, which is something that you look a lot for a quarterback is, can he go over those 20 points?
Exactly.
And like Andy said, running really matters in fantasy.
Exactly. No,
I rule that. It's because I automatically rule out the running quarterbacks because you mentioned in one of your rules, don't draft a quarterback, well, in first 1 or 2 rounds, but I don't draft a quarterback early. So I already know that
those guys are
not for me. They're not. That's not my game plan. So I take a risk on someone like, I know I mentioned him as a bust. I take a risk on like getting someone like Dak Prescott, or I take a risk in taking someone like,
which is not a major risk, by the way.
I take a risk like Trevor Lawrence, or
that's a risk.
That's a risk. Last year, I took a risk on Carson Wentz, and it did not work out for me.
No, yeah. That poor guy.
And I saw Kirk Cousins was there, and I was like, I'm just going to go back to the guy that I always get, and I always kind of roll with him as Kirk Cousins.
Because they prove themselves to be fantasy worth it. And with Joe Burrow, he hasn't. He did go to the Super Bowl, but people sometimes get conflicted of, this is a really good quarterback. Let me draft them. Compared to what you need in fantasy.
So we mentioned Joe Burrow. I brought up the stats here. Joe Burrow in PPR scored 328 points. And you said, we mentioned also Aaron Rodgers. He scored, and it's not by much, 337. And he had one of the best wide receivers in the league.
We need to look at the per game, though. per game is what matters, because they can have like a random 30-point game, 40 points, and then the rest of them are mediocre or not enough.
Yeah, let's say that Joe Burrow in one game just scores like 5 touchdowns, and then the other ones he just scores like 1 or 2. Mm-hmm. And Aaron Rodgers consistently does 3 touchdowns every game. So,
it's more about consistency over I guess the overall points in that case. And Aaron Rodgers, I think, is able to perform a more consistent per game basis than overall. He's able to give you a more consistent season. He's done it seasons after seasons after season. He's a great quarterback to pick up in fantasy for sure.
Yeah, Joe Burrow, even though I really like him as a quarterback and respect him as a quarterback, that doesn't mean that he's going to be a really good for fantasy.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I disagree.
I agree.
All right,
I'm just...
this is what's fun about fantasy. Everybody has different opinions, and that's why you draft different players, and everybody has different strategies. This is the great thing about fantasy.
Yep. And I guess in the examples that we can make, never draft a quarterback in the first 2 rounds, according to Andy, but plenty of people do it. It's just what they think is the strategy and what they go for. It's their thoughts. It's how they go to. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But this is our recommendations only, It's what it is. You don't have to go by it, but it's what we think is recommended. I mean, and then also whatever's safe for what I guess we would give to other people. But anyways, our bust, I'm going Javonte Williams, Andy's going Joe Burrow, and Yams, you're going with Dak Prescott, right?
Sorry, Andrew. Why did I call you Andrew?
It's fine, Andy. Andrew, it's fine.
Andrew, Andy, Aaron. Andy's getting really confusing. Yeah, my pick is Dak Prescott. Sorry, Aaron.
It's okay. It is what it is. Diverse minds, whatever. It's okay. You guys didn't know that Alvin Kamara, it looks like he might have gone and suspended, but it's looking very, very unlikely. So it's just a little bit that we just have to spread the news and keep it. I mean, I shouldn't have told you guys that, honestly. You guys were thinking that he's a more risky pick. Anyways.
I don't want him anyways.
Yeah, it is what it is. So that's going to conclude this episode for Football Tailgaters. We appreciate anyone that's made it to the end, and we hope to see you guys interacting with us on our social media, which is Football Tailgaters on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Thank you guys again for listening, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Thank you.
Bye.